Welcome to the Sunday service of the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I am Reverend Jacqueline Brett, and whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever your race, your gender, whomever you love, and wherever you are on your spiritual journey, we welcome you. If you're new to this community, and especially if you're visiting today, I invite you to introduce yourself in the chat box. You'll also find an important link there that will help you to learn more about us. Also, beginning next Sunday, in 2 Sundays from now, September 27th, the Inquirer series of classes for our visitors and newcomers returns at 12 noon on Zoom. You will have an opportunity to meet the ministers, staff, and others in our congregation as you learn more about ERUUF. If you are interested in attending the Inquirer series, see the registration in our weekly e-news or send an email to membership@eruuf.org. We as a congregation have begun a very limited Phase 2 reopening plan approved by ERUUF's board. ERUUF groups will be able to use assigned outdoor space only according to specific rules of use. At this time, though our Sunday morning services are being produced from the sanctuary, they will continue to be live streamed only. A small team of 10 people that includes worship leaders, musicians, and the tech team will be the only people present in the sanctuary at this time. Details on all of this are on the homepage of ERUUF's website. Unless otherwise announced, all programs will continue as they have online, as all buildings on campus remain closed. And we do all of this for the health and safety of us all as we do our part to slow the spread of the coronavirus. I am happy to announce that ERUUF's Virtual Connections Fair has officially begun. Connecting with You, an interactive website, has been created for the fair and is up and running. The fair itself, which is a time when you can learn about our various groups and how to connect at ERUUF, takes place next Sunday from 12 noon to 1:30, and it too is online. And so you can access the Connections Fair website, Connecting with You, and a whole lot more information about what's going on at ERUUF during the coming week from the homepage of ERUUF's main website, ERUUF.org. That is ERUUF.org. Today's service is led by Reverend Deborah Cayer. Jaye Vaughn is worship associate, and Julia Tyler is director of religious education. Live music is presented by Kate Lewis on piano. And today's service would not be possible at all without our tech team, Jenny Jolly and Sean Trimble, with Scott Gaskins on sound. And so I invite us all now to center ourselves. And let's all together take a deep breath in. And let it out. And let us now begin our service.
Good morning. Our opening words this morning are by Reverend Scott Taylor and the folks at Soul Matters. Scott writes, "We who long for return, who long for repair, gather again to mend the tender strands of connection between each other, the world, and those parts of ourselves buried deep inside. We begin once more the work of welcome, of forgiveness, of renewing this weary, worn world. Come, friends, a new day, a new story awaits."
And our chalice lighting this morning is by Lois Van Leer, who writes, "We light this chalice on the brink of a new year, letting go of what has been, open and hopeful for what may come, renewed, restored, ready to live life fully anew. May we move forward with intention." Our next hymn is "Enter, Rejoice, and Come In."
Enter Good morning. I am Julia Tyler, the Director of Religious Education here at the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. This morning is the beginning of the new RE year, when all our children and teachers step into their new Zoom rooms, choose virtual backgrounds, and type dream superpowers into the chat box. They will be playing Zoom games like reverse charades and Pictionary. They'll be singing and taking turns reading favorite stories from home. And there'll be lots of show and tell of pets, of stuffed animals, of bedrooms, instruments, siblings. We wish we could gather together in person, but we have been busy making lemonade out of lemons, and we are discovering beautiful new possibilities emerging in these times. For example, we weren't sure if we could run Neighboring Faiths this year because site visits are a key component of the curriculum. However, because so many other communities of faith have also been pushed to gather online, we have access to many more types of worship services than ever before. Our sense of neighbor expands and must expand as we move towards global citizenship in this era. Our site visits can suddenly go so far as to include a call to prayer in Jerusalem this year. Of course, we'd rather be able to hug each other and make each other tea, but we are all doing our part to slow the spread of the coronavirus, and we are doing a good job. So instead, we are looking for silver linings, and we are finding them, and we are inventing them. We have an amazing team of volunteers and youth and young adult staff who have been preparing for this coming year in RE. This team is a generous, fun-loving, and can-do group of ERUUFians who will be caring for the spirits of our youngest UUs. They will be building chalices out of Legos at home. They will be making food and learning blessings from around the world in their home kitchens. They will be making art, learning from puppets, playing with improvisation, engaging environmental justice, and drawing in the beauty of our natural world. Thank you, teachers, for stepping up to care for the spirits of our children and youth this coming year. In these times of change, fear, and the unknown, it's all the more important that we tend the spiritual lives of our children. We have a special gift for you leaders this year. ERUUFian Steve Crescenzo has handmade each one of you a maple wooden chalice. These chalices are both for you in your own spirit, as well as for your children and youth in your care. You can light them on a home altar or light them as you lead religious education groups. Thank you, Steve, for these beautiful physical reminders of the light inside each one of us. We know this coming year is going to require extra grace, extra creativity, resourcefulness, and effort. We're all learning how to do this together, and we'll keep practicing, keeping our hearts and minds wide, wide open this year. We celebrate and thank you, religious educators, for your gifts to this community. We bless your work, your care, and your love.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Peter Birch, and I'm here to encourage you to join either a covenant group or a chalice circle at the Virtual Connections Fair on Sunday, September 20 from noon to 1:30. These are groups of 8 to 10 ERUUFians with one trained leader who meet for 1.5 to 2 hours to discuss topics of the group's choosing. Covenant groups meet twice a month and are ongoing, whereas chalice circles meet once a month. There are currently 18 groups, and last year we had over 170 participants. Topics for my group have included creativity, white privilege, truth, loss, freedom, and belonging, among many others. Both groups begin the process by coming to an agreement or covenant on a set of meeting guidelines which, among other things, emphasize confidentiality, showing up, listening with compassion, sharing personal truth to the extent you may want to, and participating in service projects. These groups are really special. While there are topics being discussed that provide some structure, these are not Sunday school, Hebrew school, catechism classes, or madrasas, but you do leave each meeting having learned a lot. These are not groups of friends at coffee klatches. In fact, some or all of the members of your group may be people you barely know at your first meeting. And the format allows everyone who chooses to speak to do so once with no interruptions before a less formal discussion follows. Try that with a group of friends. These are not psychotherapy sessions, though the meetings are held in confidence, and you have the opportunity to share deeply personal thoughts and feelings, so you can make deeper levels of connections with others in your group. I've been an ERUUF member for 3 years and a Chalice Circle member for 2. It took me a year to decide to sign up. I have what you might call a fear of commitment. And from the outside, this looked like a huge one. But that was just it. I was getting tired of feeling on the outside, and I was looking for a good way to break in and form some meaningful ERUUF connections. What I have found after these 2 years is that this commitment is just like all the rest. You get out of it what you put in. And I have really, really gotten a lot out of being in my Chalice circle, which is why I'm encouraging you to strongly, strongly consider signing up. For more information, please visit the ERUUF website, or better yet, see us at the September 20th Connections Fair, which will be web-based this year. Thank you.
It can be so difficult not to be able to do the usual things that we normally do with family and friends throughout the year. The gatherings and the outings that we look forward to, all the things that keep us connected to each other. This morning's reading, Love Beyond God, by Adam Lawrence Dyer, speaks to this. His piece reminds us that we are interconnected with all other beings on earth in very profound and sacred ways. Our worship associate, Jaye Vaughn, has this reading for us now.
Hi, I'm Jaye Vaughn. This poem is Love Beyond God by Reverend Adam Lawrence Dyer. What if every time you woke, your sigh was felt by every being on earth? What if every time you spoke, your words were heard by every ear on earth? What if when you told a joke, you tickled the senses of every smile on earth? What if with each tender stroke you shared your touch with every hand on earth? What if when your heart broke you tasted the tears running down every cheek on earth? No bond or brand or gilded yoke. Surely this is love that reaches beyond. that holds to one another and every other to one, no matter the color or where we're from. This is now. This is we. This is love. This is God. And this is love beyond God.
Can you believe that on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, we are going to be halfway through the month of September? While COVID is definitely making time drag along in some areas of life, it's also messing with the usual way that we mark where we are in time, in the seasons of the year, and also in the seasons of our lives. Often there are regularly reoccurring events that help us make meaning out of the passing of time. We celebrate graduations in May and June. We go to the American Dance Festival in June and July. We travel to visit extended family, and we hike and we swim and we ride bikes during the summer. This might also be a time when we connect with longtime friends. When we can't do these things, on one level, the passage of time becomes meaningless. Every day begins to feel somewhat the same as the last day, as today, as what's planned for next week. A relentless sameness creeps in, which is why I can't quite fully believe that we're just 2 days away from the middle of September, that Rosh Hashanah arrives later this week on Friday evening, and that the fall equinox takes place in just over a week. The equinox happens this year on September 22nd, a day when the sun rises and sets 12 hours apart in time. And so for a brief moment, day and night will be equal, and we might imagine life itself to have some kind of balance. I've noticed that when the normal social events that help me mark time are not available, the natural elements, the phases of the sun and the moon, the planets, the migrations of birds and animals, all these things start to take on greater importance. I find great meaning in living within the sense of these great forces that hold me and that bring a sense of rhythm and pattern to the world outside and also to our own human lives. This is why in every world religion, the rhythm and patterns of the natural world become the deep background and the foundation for the liturgical year. But this year, all of this is so very deeply disturbed. As we approach the time of year when light and darkness are briefly in balance, ironically, so much is out of balance. There are the horrific wildfires in the West. 500,000 people in Chicago, that's 10% of the state population, 10%, are evacuated from their homes due to extreme fire danger. Officials are hoping for the best, and they're preparing for catastrophic loss of life and property. And what we're learning is that when the West is on fire, the East tends to experience flooding, often from extremely powerful hurricanes now. The cause of all of this is climate change. We have overdrawn the balance of nature, and now climate systems are stressed to the point where you've got to wonder if some highly populated areas now might be unlivable. That's just within the natural world. This summer of uprisings for racial justice are now stretching into fall, and still, every week it seems, we witness the new horrific murder or assault on a black person at the hands of police officers. Many officials, many of the officers genuinely appear to feel terrible remorse, and they march with protesters and promise change. But this is a systemic problem. And we haven't yet taken up all the things we need to do on multiple fronts at the same time with competent, trusted leadership, which is actually what's needed for systemic change. Even worse, the flames of this social horror are being fanned by the highest office in our nation, which welcomes and praises extremists on the right while conflating protest and riot and looting into one false story about the left. And they're using this false division to drive wedges between people and stoke the flames of heat and fear and hatred. The people occupying the highest offices in this land are tearing at democracy with everything they've got. Consequently, we are all in rough shape because we are being bullied, harassed, and gaslighted by our nation's highest officials. The threat to democracy is a looming danger. The constant threat to Black and brown lives is horrific for us all, or it ought to be. Climate disasters now routinely pose sudden, unexpected threats to the homes and lives of everyone from every neighborhood. And the pandemic is interfering with the very rhythm and patterns of our social lives. And so this year, as we approach the equinox, we are scared. We are hurting. We are desperate for some normalcy and some balance. But this year there is no place to retreat, no place to hide, no place to get away from it all. And so we are yearning to come home to our souls, as we sang last week, to be home to a time and a place where we know ourselves to be safe and well and able to move and act freely for the benefit and well-being of who and what we love the most. These are hard things. And we're going to hold all of this in our hearts while we meditate and pray with Reverend Jacqueline.
Today's words for contemplation and prayer are adapted from the words of Kathy Huff. Spirit of life, be present with us in this hour. Join us today as we gather in a wider search for truth and purpose. In this quest, may we consider one another with open hearts and open minds. May we inspire each other to consider new questions and seek deeper meaning. May we cultivate wisdom and compassion. We lift up at this time the joys and concerns of our community. Ruth Silversmith, whose father Ernest passed away peacefully on September 4th. Laura Grillo asks for our prayers that her husband Henry, who remains in the hospital in serious condition resulting from a fall, be restored to himself and good health. We pray for John Grimes Medlin as he continues a good recovery from emergency heart surgery. And we lift up Pam DeLavore and her father Phil as he recovers from a recent stroke. And finally, may all of us lift up our democracy and the leadership that our country so greatly needs. Let us hold each of these concerns in our heart for a moment of silence. May we all see a welcome face, hear a kind word, and find comfort in this community. And may all that is done and said today be in service to love and justice. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be.
Many religious traditions celebrate the abundance and beauty of the natural world throughout the entire year in very significant ways, because the earth is the literal, emotional, physical, spiritual ground of all of our lives. It's our home. It's our sustenance. Of course, nature can be savage. There are all kinds of natural perils and disasters. Every farmer, every geologist will tell us this. Still, the earth, the solar system is our home. There is no place else to go. Everyone who's born here belongs here. It's each one's birthright. It's where our inherent worth and dignity comes from. And when we understand this, we love the earth and even the moon and the sun that dance along through space with us. When we really let this sink in, We love other people and animals and plants as well. We can't help it. This deep love just arises. Adam Lawrence Dyer writes, "What if every time you woke, your sigh was felt by every being on earth? What if when your heart broke, you tasted the tears running down every cheek on earth?" Unquote. Compassion is this ability to tune into this deeper reality of how we are all interconnected. And this is what happens. We feel things whenever we remember our deep interconnection, our interdependent lives, this whole world of interdependent relationships. And yet, daily life can wear us down in the best of times, and we forget these sacred things. Which is why religions regularly have celebrations and practices that help us remember. So this Friday, Jews will celebrate the first day of the new year, Rosh Hashanah, with honey and apples and blessings and hope that the new year will be sweet for everyone. But even before Rosh Hashanah, beginning yesterday morning, many Jews are celebrating Shlichut, a time of preparation for the High Holy Days. Shlichut traditionally lasts for at least 4 days before Rosh Hashanah begins. It starts just minutes after midnight on Saturday with prayers that call out to a compassionate God. More prayers are offered and meditations are deeply pondered in that service as individuals begin to reflect deeply on the past year and possible changes they are going to want to make in the year ahead. And this preparation continues for the next several days before Rosh Hashanah even begins. This kind of intense groundwork prepares people for teshuvah, the act of turning during the High Holy Days. Turning in the sense of deciding upon a sincere, intentional change of heart, and then following through on it with action. This is a time of turning back to Torah, the law, the path, the way to God, to holiness, health, wholeness, to the greater good of the community. This is a return home to spiritual, emotional, and physical balance and renewal for yourself and for your community. It's not easy to make such a dedicated change of heart. It requires that you go down into the depths of yourself and that you keep your senses open while you do. It asks you to spend some time with the parts of your history, your own personal story, your actions, all the things that you might not be so proud of, the things that you might even actually not want to know, that you turn away from. But this is a time to turn back toward. This is not quick work. It takes time. There are times when you might be able to simply rebalance and come out with greater wholeness. But there are these other times when you have to look way down and way back to a time when you went astray and you never corrected, a time when you never got back onto the right path. Way down deep, there is something crooked, a little bit off. It's just not quite right. And everything else is coming from that crooked place, and it's going off, it's veering off in directions that you don't intend, that you don't want. And so it's time to turn. You need to spend some time with this so that you can know what it is that you need to do differently, where you need to turn. This is true for individuals. It also seems so true for our country right now. We are having a collective moment where white people are finally beginning to wake up to systemic racism. This is not about being a good white person or being nice to people of color. So many people have been astonished recently by the history that they never learned, The facts about what happened in the late 1890s in places like Wilmington, North Carolina, and a few years later in Tulsa, Oklahoma, when the seething resentment of white leaders was unleashed with a vengeance on the black communities where formerly enslaved people had built thriving homes and businesses for about 30 years, where they had been elected to public office for much of that time after emancipation. And all this time, white people had built up, some white people had built up a raging resentment, and it all came boiling out in 1898 in Wilmington with a vengeance. This was an insurrection led by white male citizens, but these were the leading citizens. These were the newspaper editors and elected officials who made and carried out plans to terrorize and kill black citizens and to steal whatever property they didn't loot and burn. Black citizens were run out of town with only what they could carry. And somehow, that story began to become covered over, and it was a story that we forgot. It got buried deep inside a crooked place in our national memory and our national conscience until very recently. Thank you, David Zucchino, for your wonderful book last year that tells the story, this year that tells the story. The same thing has happened around our full history, going back to 1619. That too was buried until it was recently brought to light by a team of scholars and journalists working with the New York Times. Thank you, Nicole Hannah-Jones. This hidden history led the way to an epidemic of lynching in the early years of the 20th century and the disenfranchisement of black voters and ongoing violence and discrimination of every kind against black people. All of this in broad daylight, where white people somehow reconceived this history as a righteous story in which they were the defenders of civilization. And other white people fell under some kind of enchantment that caused them to largely go unconscious about it all. It's this not knowing that we're fighting so hard against right now. We want white people to wake up and stay awake and have a real, genuine change of heart. And right now we're succeeding, which is why the white supremacists, especially the ones in the White House, are angry about it and are making all kinds of threats to defund education in California if Californian leaders don't remove 1619 materials from the public education curriculum. Sometimes you just need a little rebalancing. You need to clear out, you need to wash up, you need to make a few repairs, and then you can go on with life in good ways. You can feel good about it. But other times you need a total reconstruction. You have to clear out what's rotten, sometimes even way down below the foundations. Then you can rebuild, which is hard and complex, and it can take a while, and it requires effort. It takes a community. You can't do it on your own. It takes a group. We are living in a moment where we have a chance right now, perhaps the best chance we have ever had since 1865 when the Civil War ended, the chance to turn around and go back and actually enact a genuine reconstruction, which failed so badly the first time around and in the 155 years ever since. We need a change of heart and to turn around and dismantle racism and white supremacy in our culture. I'm happy that ERUUF has a reparations group that's working on all of this, and in October they'll be offering a class that we can take to learn more about some of this effort and how we can be a part of it, including connecting with things that are going on right here locally. We need a change of heart around our economy too, which includes how we treat the earth. A Green New Deal would be a good start on making the environmental changes we so desperately need so that we don't set the whole world on fire in the same way that our West Coast and Australia and Brazil have been burning. And we need a change of heart around democracy in the ways that the Poor People's Campaign envisions it. A voice, a vote, a living wage for every adult. Access to public education, college for everyone who wants to attend, training for today's jobs, a clean, green economy, affordable health care, food security, and so much more. It's doable. It's achievable. We've seen that in the last 6 months, the early signs of this. It's not impossible. It's time. It's time now to have a change of heart. It's time now to turn around on the path, to rebalance, reorient, to return home to sanity and sustainability for the whole human family, the whole family of beings on earth, the earth itself, all included, everyone in. It's time to get on the path to the future as it's imagined by the people who are most in need, to the place of we, and we the people, to a place that is balanced from way down deep, even beneath the foundations, so that what rises up can stand up tall and strong and beautiful and inclusive, creative space for all. May it ever be so. Amen. Ashe, and blessed be. So those are some of the ways that we are in the process of turning. And we have been doing that in our ministry together online. We've been holding space with each other online. We've just started to be able to gather back in person in safe ways, outside, with masks, with social distancing. We're so happy that we're able to begin that process here on our campus. We are a self-supported organization, and it's our members' generous contributions that enable us to make these things happen, to keep our doors open, to keep our ministry flourishing strong, especially some of the ministries of our justice groups, the folks working with Durham Can, the folks working on voting rights, the folks who are working to make sure that folks in the shelters downtown have meals and food and clothing and shelter. Your generous support helps make all of these things possible. And so at this time, we have a recorded offering, and please check out the chat box. If you don't make a regular contribution as a sustainer, you can go click on the link and you can make a contribution now. Thank you.
So like a ship lost out to sea, sliding far away from me. So like a ship that's run aground, grinding over sand, lost but also found. Please bring me back, please bring me back to myself. Please bring me back, please bring me back to myself. A kitten in a well, paddling for my life, sorry that I fell. If I go still and at the end, pour it on my head, make me rise again. Please bring me back, Please bring me back. Please bring me back to myself. La 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 la. Bring me back to myself. Bring me back to myself.
We are grateful for everything that brings us back to ourselves, this community, and these people. We give thanks. That was Leah Morris, a musician working out of the DC area with liberal religious congregations, including many Unitarian and Universalist ones. That was her original composition, Bring Me Back to Myself. And right now, we're going to sing together our final hymn this morning, Soon the Day Will Arrive, and Leah Morris leads us in this song as well.
ילדים לחופשה, ישחקו תופסת בין הבית לבין השדות. עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. עוד תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה.
Soon the day will arrive when we will be together, and no longer will we live in fear. And the children will smile without wondering whether on that day thunderclouds will appear. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Some have dreamed, some have died to make a bright tomorrow, and their vision remains in our hearts. Now the torch must be passed with new hope, not in sorrow, and a promise to make a new start. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me.
All the beautiful ways to live, they're possible, even in times like these. Our closing words this morning come from the Hebrew Scriptures, from the book of Deuteronomy. It is written, I call heaven and earth to witness today that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Choose life so that you and your descendants may live. This day, every day, we go in peace, we go in love to share our blessings, our energy, our heart, our faith, our love with the world. Go in peace.